My very first memory would have been in about 1965 when I attended college, and the NAACP was starting a lot of the racial tension in the 60s, plus the Vietnam conflict was starting to rise, the news media every day.
Okay. How old were you then?
I was 18 then, and I turned 25 in Vietnam, so there's about a 7-year period there where it was top and foremost in a lot of people's minds.
Okay. Like, what were you doing there?
Okay, I was drafted in the United States Army in 1968, and I went through Officer Candidate School, I went through airborne training, I went through Green Beret training, and then I went to Vietnam. And I spent the year of 1971 in Vietnam as a infantry platoon leader, a second lieutenant.
What were your overall emotions toward the Vietnam conflict?
It's been very confusing, the emotions, and I've developed several more or less in the last few years, but at the time it was a very troubling emotion because we were sent overseas to do a job, and yet the country behind us didn't seem to be supportive of us. And that gets very difficult to go 10,000 miles from home to do something your country's asked you to do, and then get letters from home saying people are burning the flag, burning the draft cards, and it was very emotional. And yet those of us that went while we were there, we did a very good job and did what we were told.
Do you remember any protests or rallies?
Yes, in the 60s, I was attending Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, and there was almost daily walking to class groups of what we called beatniks back then, with the starting of the long hair from the Beatles, and they wore blue jeans and coats with holes in them and raggedy ties and long hair, and they'd want you to sign protest, and you couldn't hardly go to class without being accosted to sign something, almost daily.
What did people in Marshall do to help the women and men in Vietnam?
There was several programs, and I'm sure the Marshall people, as well as all over the country, we used to receive what they call sundry packs, and in that would be chiclet chewing gum, toilet paper, shaving cream, maybe a bar of soap, a combination of things, and people would give $2, and somehow someone would put this package together, and then we would receive that, and in that package would be the name of the family that donated the money, and I'm sure that the people of Clark County supported that program just as much as anyone did.
Was there a lot of communication between Marshall and the men and women over the seas?
At least to the families there was a lot. I don't know about anywhere else. You have to remember that the war lasted 10 years, and most people served 1 year, so you were over there and you were home, and it kind of became a news media thing in the houses every day. You turn the TV on, that's all you saw. So there wasn't, outside of family communication, I doubt very little.
What type of music or shows and people were popular at the time?
Well, the songs I remember, the two main songs in 1971 that I remember was I Never Promised You a Rose Garden by Lynn Anderson, and then from the rock and roll side was Country Joe and the Fish sang a song called Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog. Those were the two main songs I remember. Now there was a lot of them, but Country Joe and the Fish is not the one that sang Jeremiah. That was, help me out, girls.
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about.
Well, anyway, Country Joe and the Fish did, there was a song called 1, 2, 3, 4, What Are We Fighting For? Don't know and I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And 5, have you heard that one? Okay, well, that was one of the main ones that was going on at that time too.
Okay.
But the Beatles started it, and really things changed from 64 to 68.
Okay. Was it an important topic in Marshall to discuss, or was the problem avoided?
And my personal opinion is it was avoided by as many people as possible, not because that they didn't want to talk about it, was they didn't know what to say about it. 'Cause like I said earlier, if someone in your family went, they were there 1 year and they came home, and then it's like out of sight, out of mind. And the daily television programs just become a way of life that we had young men and women dying in Vietnam, and nobody seemed to care too much.
How were the soldiers welcomed when they came home?
It wasn't any, to
Really?
be honest. I went from sleeping on a jungle floor to 3 days later sleeping in my house. And if you don't think that ain't a shock, I mean, the United States government, for 1 year I was gone. So for 1 year you don't know what's happening. I guess imagine yourself if you laid out 1 year of high school, you missed a lot. And then come back to it and expect everything to be the same. It's not. So I think the government owed us an indoctrination to say, well, here are the new songs, here are the new styles, here are what's going on in the country. Like I said, I went from a jungle floor to sleeping in my bed in 3 days, and that's quite a shock.
How did Marshall react when the war was ended?
That'd be a tough question to answer. I don't know. I'm sure everyone was thankful, without a doubt, that something as controversial as Vietnam was over. And many, many people were very thankful, and I was thankful, simply because, well, there was young men and women dying every day, and nobody seemed to be supporting them. So my feeling always was either get in there and kick butt and do it right, or come home. And I think we should have come home long before we did, or made that decision.
Was there any like special functions they held over there for your entertainment and stuff for you guys?
Yeah, there was USO shows. Entertainers would come. Now, very few people got to see them, but like the Bob Hope Show, which is famous from all the wars, or at least from World War II on, would be over there once or twice a year, but like only one person from your unit would get selected to go hear it. So very few of us got to see, but there was lots of Filipino bands, Korean bands like that couldn't speak English, but they tried to sing English songs and different. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have anything else you'd like to share that you'd like us to know about Vietnam?
Well, I think a lot of it is, I think children, and I shouldn't say children, young men and women your age, need to realize that the average age of the people killed in Vietnam was 18 to 18 and a half years old. And I don't know how old you guys are, but you look like about 16. The young men and women your age are just a year and a half from doing what I had to do. And even though I was one of the older ones over there, the average age was 18 turning 19. I had a young man that carried a machine gun for me that was 6'3". He wasn't even done growing. He's now 6'6", so he wasn't even fully a grown man yet. And he was. When the country sends you off to war, it's the young that go. It's the young that die. The other thing I would tell you is war is not pretty and war is bad. You cannot imagine, and there's no way to tell it, but it is bad, and everyone needs to realize that. When this country commits to a war, it needs to commit to win that war and do it right. And I don't know what the history books are going to tell you, but we lost for the first time in the history of this country. We came in second place. Second place in a war is not good. That's my personal opinion. So I would like to see what they're going to teach in the schools, because no matter what they tell you, we lost. It is no longer a free country over there. It is under communists, so we lost.
Okay, that's a call. I was going to ask you about how your book was, like what it was about and
Yes,
everything.
I wrote a book called Bait in 1987, which was basically the day-to-day living from the day I got there in 1971 until I came home. It describes, believe it or not, a lot of humor, as well as the bad. And it's for me to write it, I got tired of, in the late 70s, of watching TV at night, and it seemed like every Vietnam veteran was a drunk, or a drug addict, or a murderer. And I realized myself and many that I knew were very normal individuals, came back home, got married, settled down, had children, and nobody would know they was ever in Vietnam. So that prompted me to write about some of the young men I served with. And I'm very glad that I did it. And I have a reunion every 5 years, and this reunion is coming up this summer. So if you girls want to meet they should have a copy of the book here at the library, I think, or used to.
Yeah, we've heard about it.
If not, I'll get you one.
Okay.
If you want it.
Okay.
Okay.